Ladies over 35, especially ladies over 40, we need to talk about the blatant misinformation when it comes to burnout, aging, and perimenopause, because they're all different and we need to distinguish between these three things if we're ever going to get well. So let's talk about aging first. All right, so aging in and of itself doesn't mean symptoms. And of course, Western culture, media, medicine has us convinced that as we get older, the pain in our bodies, the lack of energy, the lack of focus, that these things are just normal. Okay? And you can run with that if you want, but if you want to have a healthier, better life, then we need to operate from a mindset perspective that says that symptoms are just an indicator of something being imbalanced, and that it's not an indicator of age specifically. And again, I realize that the more Western mentality has this kind of way of thinking, right? And of course, I don't want to my goal here is not to beat down on, allopathic medicine or big pharma. It has its place, but we need to operate from a space of optimization first, and then worst case scenario, if we need to lean into that, we do. But let's start with the fact that, again, aging does not have to mean symptoms, and let's go from there. Now we're going to break down the difference between burnout symptoms versus perimenopause, right? So, historically speaking, most women enter menopause between anywhere from, say, 47-ish to 54. That is the age range for which women will go through menopause. Are there outliers? Absolutely. 45, 56. But we're not going to, worry so much about menopause as much as we're going to talk about the symptoms leading up to it and whether or not it's perimenopause or if it's just burnout, right? So that's why I'm speaking to women over 35, because the new messaging has basically taught us that perimenopause is basically 35 and up, and it's like this long laundry list of symptoms, right? I was trained, I was taught, and the more natural or non-allopathic doctors that I work with still have the mindset that perimenopause is essentially the transition point into menopause, where the ovaries begin to shut down factory, and the biggest indicator is irregular or absent cycles, right? So this is how we know we're getting ready to shut down factory completely. Typically it lasts anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. So that would be perimenopause. If your cycles are still completely irregular, then let's assume we're not in perimenopause, okay? And move on to burnout symptoms. So now that we've kind of clarified those two things, let's talk about burnout, because this is the parasite that is under the surface, running the show and causing so much havoc in women's lives. I actually saw a study recently that said burnout is happening as early as 25. 25, that's terrible, right? But what are symptoms of burnout? Burnout is exhaustion, tired but wired. So we are dealing with a nervous system that is either in fight or flight, or it's completely shut down, right? Emotionally speaking, we are hypervigilant. The shoe's always about to drop, or we are apathetic and we are just completely shut down from feeling anything. The obviously the exhaustion, the energy issues, not sleeping. We might be having night sweats around our cycle. We could be dealing with brain fog, pain in the body. All of those things are indicators of a nervous system dysregulation, as well as elevated cortisol that is siphoning from your sex hormones. And I was really blown away when my natural doctor was like, this isn't perimenopause, I'm checking for that, this isn't that at all, this is pregnenolone stealing. So pregnenolone stealing is more or less the term used to describe when you have too much cortisol. And because cortisol will absolutely prioritize over everything else, In order to keep up its production for the purpose of survival, it will steal from your sex hormones to keep going. And the first one for women is progesterone. Second one is estrogen. In men, we know that this happens and it steals testosterone. So this is, again, not normal, not healthy, not part of aging, not perimenopause either. This is too much stress. Years of being unable to unpack life, years of not being able to really navigate in a space of being able to utilize your voice or set proper boundaries. And again, unpack. What does unpack look like? Unpack would be dealing with an issue head on, moving through it to the point where you've resolved it mentally, physically, emotionally, and putting it down. That's what it means to unpack a situation. Life, unfortunately, becomes so chaotic by the time we are in our late 30s and early 40s that in order for that chaos to be managed, cortisol spikes, right? We know that cortisol competes with insulin too. And so when cortisol is basically cock-blocking insulin from getting into the cell, it creates a whole other host of symptoms, right? Insulin resistance, weight gain, those things that we're like, well, I didn't change my diet and I haven't changed my exercise, so I don't get it. Why is this happening, right? Too much insulin that is not being regulated properly adds to inflammation. And that's the other thing. By the time we're 27, our immune systems are not modulating as well. 27, that is so young. Imagine. And of course, we've all been there, right? That was the age when the hangover lasted like a lot longer than it used to. So yeah, you take the inflammation, the unregulated cortisol, you take all of these situations that are compounding. I haven't even touched on trauma and how trauma can actually be the silent thing pushing the gas subconsciously every day. Imagine you're like, I'm doing everything right. So why am I so stressed? Why is my nervous system so dysregulated? Sometimes that trauma, that issue that you thought was resolved is stuck in the vagus nerve and it is running the show. This is why so many women have perimenopausal symptoms, but they're not in perimenopause. And the thing is, we need to make this distinction if we're going to treat it properly, if we're going to regulate ourselves and postpone the inevitable menopause, right? Because there's no reason to head into an early menopause simply because you weren't able to regulate the stress hormones properly, right? And there absolutely are ways to break free from these cycles, to reset your body, and to actually optimize everything so that you're not having these symptoms anymore. There is so much to unpack here, and I have barely even just skimmed the surface. But if you want more information, if you're tired of being tired, if you feel like your anxiety has a chokehold on you, if you feel like you're just like who you used to be is a distant memory, right? If you want to change any of this, my name is Paige Elizabeth. I am a wellness and mindset coach. I am an author and I'm a speaker, and I am here to serve women like you. Because you don't have to live this way. You can absolutely sleep amazing, wake up rested, have no pain in your body, be able to focus, be able to accomplish, have an amazing sex drive again. It just takes a few months to reset everything. So if you do want more information, please don't hesitate to reach out. I have 2 different types of programs that I host for women like you, and I would love to absolutely be of service and help you too.